and I don't know about anyone else. Um, but first and foremost, welcome. Again on a sunny Thursday. This is our spring rendition of Women's Giving Circle on the bright side. I'm Bree Applebaum-Kula and chair of the Women's Giving Circle of the Community Giving Foundation. And I have the pleasure of launching today's event. And I'll quickly turn it over to our speakers in a moment. But before we do that, just to get going with a little bit of lay of the land, first and foremost, welcome. I know we have members on here. We have some of our design team, some of the Women's Giving Circle and Community Giving Foundation members and staff. Thank you all for coming out for this. As a reminder, the mission specifically of the Women's Giving Circle is to empower, connect, and inspire women and girls by supporting initiatives and resources that better their lives. And so we hope in all of our actions that we are doing that, whether it's gatherings like this today or some of the activities we have on our horizon that we'll highlight a little later in our presentation. And we hope that you'll join in anywhere you're able to. And thank you again for coming together. Let's look on the bright side on a sunny day. Like I said, I'm chomping at the bit to hear some of our speakers' information today, because it's so fitting to think spring, getting involved in your own backyard, in your community's backyard, just getting out in the sunshine, and let's all help each other have an extra spring in the step this time of year. So without further ado, if I can go ahead and introduce our lovely speakers today. We have Cynthia Schroll and Sally Meyer joining us. So just a little bit of background, and then I am sure both of them can go a little deeper as they're presenting. But Cynthia has lived in the area for over 30 years. She's a gardener and enjoys growing vegetables, herbs, perennials, and most importantly, native plants for pollinators. Many of her mentors have been members of the Fishing Creek Herb Guild, and she is presently an active member of the Guild. She spends a good part of her spring and summer days outdoors walking, hiking, and gardening. And I know that she's played an active part in making sure we have a great presentation today. And joining her, Sally Meyer lives on a farm just outside of Catawissa. She loves to raise herbs and is learning how to use them in many different ways. She is a member of the Fishing Creek Herb Guild, and along with a wonderful group of women, helps to maintain the gardens at the Barton House. And again, she's going to help Cynthia today share the information they've put together for us. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to our speakers. And thank you so much, Cynthia and Sally, for sharing out today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bree, and welcome everyone. We see Sally and I are seeing a lot of familiar names in the participant list, a lot of our fellow gardeners from the Fishing Creek Herb Guild. So welcome. And those of you who are here, feel free to chime in if you have something you would add when we start to go through our slides. But as Bree said, the theme for the Women's Giving Circle is empower, inspire, and connect. And we both feel that gardening in general has been an opportunity really to connect with so many wonderful people who have lots of talent and knowledge and lots of experience gardening. I know many of my mentors have been from gardening groups. And we just like to encourage you, if you are interested in doing a bit more gardening, there's plenty of places that you can do that, plenty of public spaces such as libraries, churches. There's lots of garden clubs in the area. And there's, of course, the Herb Guild, Fishing Creek Herb Guild, which has been in existence now for over 30 years. Yeah, yeah. And Sally, if you'd like to add something.
Well, I just think gardening, you can either work as an individual at your home, which is always lovely. It makes you get outside, but also if you join some type of a gardening guild, you're with like-minded people, and I enjoy being with other people when you're doing something. So the Barton House is a subgroup of the Herb Guild, and it's 21 women who get together every Monday, and you learn from each other, and it, especially after you retire, you have to find where and who you want to be with. And gardening is a something that I think is super healthy when you get together with other people. And it's inspiring as well to watch other people garden and learn from what they're doing, and you can teach others. And I just feel it's a real positive way to be with others.
And I think you also find that when you're with a group of gardeners, there's you know, a lot of dirt under the fingernails and a
Yes.
lot of passion for what they're
Mhm.
doing. Um, so we'll go ahead and get started with Spring Has Sprung, Let's Go Native. And the first thing we're going to take a look at is some native plants. And native plants, that if you, probably most of you have been to a nursery or garden center where there is a big focus on native plants right now. And it's been that way for a couple of years. So a native plant is one that will occur naturally in a particular region. It could be in the state of Pennsylvania. It could be in the Northeast. It could be in a certain ecosystem or habitat. But native plants can be flowers, ferns, mosses, trees, shrubs, nothing left out here. The one thing that I do want to say, though, is because we're seeing such a real focus on native plants, and for a lot of very, very good reasons, there is a distinction between non-natives and invasive plants. So we've all heard this idea of invasive plants, and if you drive anywhere in Columbia County or any of the counties really in this area, one of the non-native plants that we see that has become extremely invasive is Japanese knotweed. And that is a plant that would have come into the country from Asia. So when we're saying non-native, it means it did not originate in a particular region. However, invasive and non-native are not necessarily the same things. You can have a native plant in your garden that can become quite invasive. In other words, it may spread through a root or rhizome system and really begin to take over a garden area where you don't want it to. So I wanted to make that distinction before we get started between something being non-native and usually non-natives are invasive. So we have Japanese knotweed, we have stiltgrass, we have multifloral rose, a lot of these things that just take over. But we're going to look at the native plants that you can put in your garden that really will help not only you, but the biodiversity and all the little creatures that live around us.
Can I mention that?
Cynthia?
Yes.
Cynthia, I just want to point out to everyone that at the end, at the closing, we will be sending out a copy of the recording, a copy of the slides. So you don't need to take a lot of notes. There's a lot of content that they're going to be providing us. And I just want to make sure everybody understands that you will be getting that information after the webinar. Thanks.
Excellent.
I just wanted to mention, I've met two landscapers now, one who came specifically to the Barton House last year to see our Dyer's garden and our herb gardens, because he is being asked more and more to plant native plants and herb specific types of gardens, medicinal, maybe a medicinal herb garden. I also met a landscaper, in New York above Ithaca who started out just raising the native plants to sell in his nursery, but now at least half, if not more, of his business is to landscape people's areas, because more and more people are looking to have native plants in their yards because of drought, because of cold winters. They want plants that will last through those, and native plants are much more likely to survive than other plants. So there is a real interest, I think, even nationwide now, to look more at native plants.
And on that note, we'll go on to our next slide, which we really want to take a good look at the benefits of planting native on your property, in your garden. And for me, I will say that I had 4 years ago put in, and I have continued to expand, a large pollinator garden, which I would say 90% of what I have in that garden is native. So when we're looking at one of the most important benefits in my mind, and a real luxury, I'm going to use that word, is that native plants do provide food and shelter for wildlife, for birds, and for insects, and particularly for pollinators. As Sally just said, natives are much more well adapted to the local area, so they can survive and thrive in conditions that are, typically what we're going to be expecting as far as weather conditions. Obviously, climate change has had some effect, and that's why people are looking to maybe take certain things out that are not surviving as well and put some natives in. Once they get established, and I can definitely say this because, as I said, this garden has been in for 4 years. Once these plants are established, they tend to be fairly easy to care for. They're more drought tolerant. A lot of them tend to have a deeper root system, so that can really help with controlling erosion depending on where you have them planted. And this idea of attracting pollinators is really important. Pollinators over the past 10 years have really suffered a huge decline nationwide, actually worldwide, most likely. I can only speak for nationwide or for particularly for this area, but I know that having put in a native pollinator garden, I am seeing, as you can see in this slide, a wide variety of bees, native bees, honeybees, bumblebees, butterflies, moths, wasps, visiting my garden. And it has been just such a pleasure to visit with them and to capture them on the native plants. And next slide, please.
Cynthia, while you're on that just for a moment, because all the
Sure.
beautiful butterflies, but is there a way to attract hummingbirds or
Yeah, this one right here.
I didn't even mean to tee you up so perfectly, but that's wonderful. They're some of my favorite to see.
Yeah. So what I've tried to do here is I've chosen 6 different natives that I have in my gardens and that I feel you would be able to easily find at nurseries and garden centers in the local area. And I've tried to put them in the order of the season in which you will see them blooming. Because the one thing you want to do if you're going to put in a garden with natives and pollinator plants is you want to look at the seasonal changes, and you want to have the nectar, pollen available throughout the growing season. So what we're seeing here, and most of you are probably familiar with columbine, there's a lot of different columbines available on the market. This is our native columbine, which grows in this area. It is one of the earliest to bloom. I just checked mine the other day, and it's looking pretty hardy. I'm not seeing anything in the way of flowers yet, but it often does begin to flower at just about the same time that the hummingbirds are going to be passing through this area or coming through from migration and staying in this area. If you are someone who likes to walk or hike a lot, you will notice this plant frequently growing on rocky ledges or slopes, often that are a little bit moist, and they look sometimes like they're growing right out of the rocks. They do prefer a moist environment. Sometimes they are kind of referred to as a spring ephemeral, meaning that they flower in the spring for a brief period of time and then they disappear. They do provide, as I said, for the hummingbird, which Bree just asked about, they will provide a source of food very early in the season. And there certainly are other flowers that will do the same. The one thing with the native columbine too is it self-seeds very easily. I had a hard time getting it started initially because my garden is mainly sun, but it is a moist area. And so I put it in 2 years ago, and I have tons of little volunteer plants this year. It's really a beautiful, very delicate, fragile, kind of dainty looking flower. Okay, so that would be an early spring one. The next one that we're going to take a look at, actually, some of you probably recognize this plant. And you might recognize this little caterpillar that's on the little stalk there, and there's also a wasp or a bee up top. This is a plant called swamp milkweed. We all know our milkweed that grows crazy here in some areas in the summer, and that is one of the main host plants. Well, the milkweed is the main host plant for the monarch butterfly. This particular one I really like, and I was actually able to start it from seed, which is kind of unusual. It spreads through rhizomes, in other words, those underground roots that kind of spread out parallel to the surface of the soil. But it also has wind-blown seeds, so it's got those pods like you would see on milkweed in the fall, and then those seeds are dispersed by the wind. Gets to be about 3 to 5 feet tall. It's a beautiful pink color. It has a very light fragrance. Milkweed, if you've never gone out when milkweed is blooming in a field and smelled the fragrance, it's just absolutely enchanting. And this flower also has a slight kind of vanilla fragrance to it almost. It is supposedly a host plant for about 12 different types of butterflies, but the monarch is the one that would be the most recognizable. And when I'm saying it's a host plant, it is where they would lay their eggs. They would then travel to other flowers to feed and get nectar. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. This is probably another flower that many of you have seen if you're out walking. It is, well, let me ask and see if anyone knows. This is wild, and I think there's a lot of people in Herb Guild. I should look to you, ladies. This is one called wild bergamot, but it also has another more common name than bergamot. Anybody want to give that one a? I'm not looking at my chat here.
It has to be bee balm, yeah?
Yes, thank you. I don't know who that was,
I
but
don't either.
yes, it is bee balm. This is the wild bergamot, Monarda fistulosa. A lot of you probably have a bee balm in your garden already. There's the red or the really deep fuchsia is probably the one that we see most often. This one is fabulous. And I know I do a lot of walking in Coker Park. There is a lot of this in several areas of Coker Park. Kind of prefers a little bit of shade, but it will do fine in full sun too. Moist or even dry conditions. Once again, these natives are really quite adaptable. The other thing about a native, and I noticed this particularly with bee balm, is they are typically not as susceptible to different types of diseases. And if you've ever grown bee balm, you will notice that often it will get a powdery mildew on the leaves late in the season. And this one, you will not see that as frequently. It really is a gorgeous plant, and the pollinators just absolutely love it. This is a plant that was used by indigenous peoples in New York, the Oswego indigenous people, and it was used to make a tea that was good for lung and flu types of ailments. And bergamot oil is an essential oil that is used in the Earl Grey tea that we drink today. So a lot of these natives have not only, they're great for the environment in which they're planted, but they also have other uses. And we'll talk about those other uses a little bit more when we get into looking at some herbs. And again, this is a plant that I just put in, I think 2 years ago.
Where do you want? Sorry.
That's fine. Thank you, Ellen. And this is one that I love the Culver's root, and I can tell you that the pollinators also love Culver's root. It is a very tall plant. You may have to stake it. It's a tiny, tiny white flower that you can see grows in almost like a candelabra shape. And it attracts all kinds of native bees, butterflies. It really is it's a great addition to a garden, very, very hardy. I've noticed quite a few volunteers from this plant coming up this year. If you're going to put it in a garden, you would probably want to plant it to the back because of its height. This is a plant that will bloom probably June-ish through August, just depending on the year, on the summer. So again, when you're planting, you want to look at the season. And so you want to have flowers throughout the season. You want to take a look at the height of the plant. So you are being able to arrange your garden appropriately so that one isn't blocking out another or falling on another. You want to look at color so that you really have a nice color combination in the garden throughout the season. And then you also want to take a good look at the soil conditions. Now, if you're putting everything in one garden like I have, my soil conditions are pretty much the same right around. But again, look at the soil conditions here. Sun to partial shade, moist, well-drained soil, but they can often tolerate on one end or the other, either drier or a little bit moister.
Cynthia, when you talk about designing your garden to have the right height and soil and timing and all of this, if I were a newbie at setting up my garden, which I will admit I might be, would you start out with drawing it on a piece of paper, or do you start with a few things and just keep adding? How to dive into it? Because I'm intrigued by everything you're sharing, and I might just start my own.
Yeah, and I'll let Sally talk about this too. I've done it both ways. Sometimes it's just like, oh, I get these plants because I'm trading with friends. Somebody gives me a plant that's an extra from their garden. I throw it in at some place, make sure that I mark it carefully so I know where it's going to come back. But typically for instance, when I did the pollinator garden, I did draw it out for myself and I did a chart for myself. This plant is going to flower in June. This plant is going to flower in August. This plant is going to be 2 feet tall. Look at the colors, see what I want to mix. So it is a great idea to look at all the characteristics and then to start drawing it out for yourself if you have that luxury.
I tend to plant them. I have some raised beds, so often I'll plant them in a raised bed, really to see the height and how much room they need width-wise as well as their height. And then after I get to know the plant better, then I'll start to rearrange things if needed. And at the Dyer's garden that we both work on at the Barton House, now that we understand and know some of the plants better, now we're going to draw out this year a better plan to raise some of them. But until you really see it in your own garden, sometimes it's hard to really understand how much room they need.
Right. Yeah, and look at the spread on them too. I mean, some plants like this one, 5 to 6 feet tall, but it might take up 2 or 3 feet wide.
Right.
A lot of times with these native plants too, you don't want to just plant one.
Yeah.
You want to plant them in maybe a group of 3 or 4, and especially, when you're keeping in mind the insects that you're going to be attracting. Like if you just have one, that insect is going to go, oh, okay, that's it. There's no more. So you want to keep that in mind. But I think as most of us gardeners know, if you start a garden, you're probably going to end up moving plants on a regular basis. And once you find a spot where they're happy, then that's where they will find a home. Yeah. Thanks, Bree.
I say thank you. I'm inspired, and I'm intrigued.
Patience. Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to late summer, and this is another beauty, and this is common sneezeweed. This would be the native plant. There are other sneezeweeds out there there's cultivars, that they have been bred. The one in the picture in the top right corner is from my garden, and that's a sneezeweed that is red and yellow. The reason I threw it in there is to show you that beautiful little butterfly that is kind of upside down there in the bottom right, and he is a little hair streak, a gray hair streak. But the yellow is the most common, the yellow color for this particular flower. This I have taken and divided, and I have moved it to about 5 or 6 different locations in Coker Park, and just basically dug a hole and put it in. I haven't really, there's other plants growing up around it, but it seems to come back every year. And it's just a bright, sunny, beautiful little smiling flower. Late Comes in late in July, might even last into October if the season is particularly warm. I really, really like this one a lot. And then finally, with the natives, most of you probably know this one. There are many, 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 many types of asters. And the one that is native to our region is called there's probably more than one, but this is the one that we often see. This is the one that I have in the garden. It's called the New England aster. It is just a gorgeous, gorgeous purple flower. The one thing that I have had to do with this is to stake it. It gets quite large. And so I've learned over the summers that what I try to do is I will pinch back the young plants early on in the summer, like maybe in June or July, to get a bushier, fuller plant, and that way they don't just shoot to the moon. And so I would stop pinching them back probably in July or August, maybe even a little bit earlier. But this is a great source for pollinators and insects in the late summer, early fall, especially when they begin migrating. There's lots and lots of types of asters that you will find in garden centers. This one I know because I've really gotten more into looking at butterflies, is a host plant for a beautiful little butterfly that is common in this area called the pearl crescent butterfly. So I think it just, when we get to the end, I can share with you a little bit about, sources of these plants. I will say that I have started some from seed, I've started some from bare roots, and I've started a lot from young plants. And it just depends on, you want to look at germination rates, and some plants actually will take a long, long time for the seed to germinate. And if you don't have time, you're better off just buying a plant.
Cynthia,
Yes.
any of the ones that you've mentioned deer resistant? That's what my husband has given up
Yeah.
on doing anything because we've got so many deer that just come and chomp them off before they get started.
I would say of all of these that I have mentioned, the majority of them I have found to be quite deer resistant. The New England aster, I've had some problems occasionally, but I think it's more of an insect and not very early on in the season and not an animal. I know, you can look for deer resistant labels, and sometimes they are deer resistant, and sometimes anymore they just aren't, because I think the deer, as we all are, adapting to change, adapting to changes in their habitat. And I really do think sometimes they are eating things that we never thought that they would. But I do use a deer repellent spray in the summertime. I don't use it on all of the plants. It is a natural spray. And I use it like once every 7 days unless I've had a lot of rain. And it does seem to do the trick because I do not have the gardens fenced at all. And they are wide out in the open. So, okay, so we're going to move on and talk a little bit about herbs.
Okay, we've chosen 5 very easily herbs that are very easy to grow and that you can find in your local nursery center. What is an herb? And it's an herbaceous plant that lacks a woody stem and dies to the ground each winter. Here, some plants don't, where in the Mediterranean, rosemary would not do that there. Herbs are frequently used for culinary medicinal purposes, and many of these have been used in researching for this. 1000 BC, they were talking about some of these herbs. When they opened the tombs, the Egyptian tombs, they could still smell some of the herb scents when they opened those. So we've been using herbs for many, many generations. I was talking to Cynthia before we did this and thought, it was like what we do if we go to Walmart or to Giant and start looking in the aisles, the forest and the other areas, that was their Giant, and they look for different plants and to see how they could use them. So anyway, we're going to start with, we were going to talk about how you can hear some of the different uses. I have gotten into pressing flowers and herbs as well. You can use them for teas. There's so many different uses for herbs. And as you start to research, you just find more and more uses. And you find also, again, many, many stories about herbs in ancient times, which is fun.
And I think, when you look at these photos here, it just does really give you a feel for how many uses you have. And it's really, if you think of an herb that some of you may like and some of you may detest, like cilantro.
Mhm.
So cilantro, it's the leaves that are the herb, and you're using that in your cooking. But then if you leave the cilantro go until it goes to seed, you have a spice, and that is the coriander seed. So sometimes you are able to use both the leaves and the seed or the fruits
And
from
the
a particular,
flowers.
and the flowers from a particular plant. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to look at chamomile first. Next slide. And there are three basic chamomiles, the Roman, the German, and the Dyers. I plant the Dyer's chamomile, which is the bright yellow, and that will give you a golden brown dye. That is in our Dyer's garden at the Barton House as well. It's also a great plant, flower to press, and it keeps that color. Some flowers and herbs, when you press them, they're still beautiful, but their color diminishes and you get a kind of a washed out color. This yellow stays. So it's a beautiful one. Chamomile, the symbol is peace, patience, and wisdom. It's refreshing, relaxing, a pain reliever. It's the herb of the year this year. Flowers, the annual is a German. The Dyer's chamomile does reseed itself. And again, that's another one that I planted small because when you read the height, it's not that high, but it spreads. So I planted it in a raised bed first. And now I'm going to give it a larger space this year. The other thing is it flowers all summer. So I would pick to press or to dye. I was picking these flowers on a regular basis, and then it would flower even more. The chamomile has been used since Roman times. It's densely carpeting, low growing. You use the flowers for chamomile tea. All three of these require a sunny, as most herbs do, require real sunny, because many of these are from the Mediterranean. So potential benefits, chamomile has a mild sedative effect on the nervous system. So many people drink chamomile tea. It helps with digestion, menstrual cramps, subdues anxiety, and it's used for the relaxing qualities that extend to the gut area as well. I just looked up some recipes for cooking with chamomile, and there's some really nice recipes. I'm going to make a chamomile tea bread for the Herb Guild in May because that's our herb of the month. So it's a really nice one.
Smells
and
great.
It does smell great, and there's many uses for it.
And the one that I mentioned to Sally is one of the people that I first met in the Herb Guild, who was a mentor of mine, used to make sleep pillows. And this is one of the flowers that she would put in a sleep pillow, and it would just be a tiny little pillow with maybe some lavender, chamomile, some hops flowers, and you would just put it under your pillow at night so that you sleep better. Yeah.
So next slide. This is the Greek oregano. There's other varieties, but this is the one if you're starting out, you'll find in our local nurseries. And it's the one with probably the most potent scent, the one that you're used to smelling if you buy it in the grocery store in small bottles. It is Mountain of Joy is one of the things it's called. It's a healing and happiness. Spicy and robust. It is in the family of mints. It's beautiful in a herb garden, but it's also beautiful in a pot. I don't mix my herbs when I put them in a pot. I want that real strong scent from each herb, but this is a beautiful one if you have, a patio, and it's just a nice all-around herb. They say for medicinal uses, it's coughs, colds, influenza, improves the removal of phlegm, lungs, relaxes bronchial muscles, an herb for the gut. And as we were looking at all these herbs, the 5 we've chosen, very similar in their quality, medicinal
Yeah.
qualities.
And the one thing that we also want to say is whenever you're thinking of potentially using an herb for medicinal purposes, you certainly want to research it. But you also, if it's for something particular that you're seeing a doctor for, you
Yes.
would definitely want to speak to your physician before even thinking of trying any type of an herbal.
Yes. And in researching these, there is more and more scientific
Yes,
studies.
from the
We hope that it
NIH.
continues, because they are finding that some of these uses that have been written down and being used for many, many years, they are finding that that is the way, that is true.
The case when they look
Yeah.
at the components.
So an essential oil, they're antimicrobial, antioxidants properties, and the best 2 for the home gardener are Greek and Mediterranean. Those are the best
For your
and the ones that
culinary.
you're going to find for culinary. Cooking, it's a pungent scent, stronger than marjoram. It goes well with lemon and garlic and wine meats, fish, salads, used, as you know, in a lot of mixed herb products. It's an all-around really nice and very easy to grow.
Super easy.
And someone had asked earlier about deer, and I find now my herb gardens are near a vegetable garden, so that's what needs to be protected are the lettuces and all the greens. I don't find that the deer are interested in
No.
herbs, which is another good reason to raise them. Okay, next slide. Rosemary. Rosemary is one of my very favorite
Mine too.
herbs to raise. Symbolically, it represents remembrance, dew of the sea, and love. In medieval times, often brides would carry a rosemary wreath, and it represented fidelity for lovers. Spaniards revered rosemary as the bush that sheltered the Virgin Mary on the flight to Egypt. And supposedly, as she spread her cloak over the bush, the white flowers turned to blue. As you read about herbs, there's a lot of interesting history behind some of these. There's a common rosemary. There are some newer rosemaries, and you can find several different varieties in a local nursery. There's one called Sawyer's Selection, and I'm sure you may have seen it. And it is a taller one rather than, it's a real spiky, tall one and then ancient texts, they even talk about a silver form of rosemary. I haven't seen that one. In Shakespeare time, they used for topiaries. They used to spread rosemary in jails and on the floor or in other areas where there were a lot of people thinking that it might help with typhoid spread. You can use rosemary in the summer with flowers in an arrangement, and you smell the rosemary and it's just a beautiful all around herb. If you're going to dry it, this one is not good for microwave drying. You would hang it up, and I hang rosemary, tie it, hang it, but I also put a paper bag on top because I have dogs and you don't want to get it dusty, and it dries within 2 or 3 weeks. Um, for most of the herbs, you do want to, if you're going to dry them for future use, you do want to dry them before they flower. Now, I have not always gotten to that, and I have dried it later too, but it is best and it's more potent before they flower. And then after they're dried, you can take one sprig at a time, just as you need it, and take off the
The needles.
leaves. And it's best then if you do that and
Crumble.
crumble them right as you need it, and it's much more potent. So that's another advantage to having your own herbs, because you're able to do that and instead of purchasing it where it's already crumbled. For culinary use, you can use the flowers as well as the green, put it in salads. It's great in meat dishes, especially pork and lamb. So it's a nice herb. Okay, the next one, please. Basil, we all know about basil, but the main one when you're starting, you want to get a sweet basil. That is the one that you usually will see in a nursery. If you want to dry this one, a very easy way is to put paper towels on a plate, zap it for 1 minute, take it off of that plate, put it on a dry plate, zap it for 1 more minute, and
In the microwave.
in the microwave, and then you have beautiful, rich green leaves. The other way, and you do this a lot, you want to share that?
Yeah, another way to keep basil. Well, first of all, some of you probably make pesto. That's a fabulous way to keep it. And you
And
can just
freeze
make
it.
your pesto and freeze it and not put the cheese in. And you could just, once you pull it out of the freezer, you can add your Parmesan cheese. But another way to do it is just to chop it up, put it in ice cube trays and pour a little bit of water in. And then you could just take out a cube every time you want to make a soup or a sauce or a stew. It's probably one that we use more frequently than a lot of other herbs if you really are spending a lot of time in the kitchen. But Sally, the one that we could just mention that people aren't aware of would be the
Yeah.
Tulsi.
And I will just mention this very quickly. Tulsi basil is a member of the basil family. It's called Tussie or holy basil. It's an extremely easy plant to raise. You can raise it from seed. This is not easy to find in a local nursery. You might have to, if you would like to raise it, you may have to order seeds, but you can put the seeds right out in the dirt and they'll come up. But this is a great one. It's great for your immune system. At Bloomin' Natural, there's a wonderful group of teas. They're made from
Organic India.
and they have Tulsi in each one of the teas, and then they'll have other things in each tea. But it's the more we read about Tulsi, the more that I really like it. Again, you can
Yeah.
dry it, you can make your own. One lady, as I was researching this, makes cold water in the summer and puts the leaves in and drinks it that
Has a
way all
lovely
summer.
fragrance.
It does.
Yeah.
So that's a new one you may not have heard about, but we highly
Really
recommend
like
that
it.
you might want to raise that. And again, it's easy.
Sally, which one is the purple in the
Oh.
picture on the slide?
Yeah, that is called the opal.
Yeah, it's dark opal basil, and that's actually a cultivar. So it originally came from Asia. It's a cultivar of a sweet basil. It's really nice because of that dark burgundy color if you want to use it like as a border, to use it in bouquets, but it does have a great flavor too. It's got a little bit of a licorice flavor, and the flower does attract pollinators for sure. Yeah.
And one other note on the regular basil, you want to trim this often,
Yeah.
and you want it to spread out. So you eat even before it starts to flower, you can start to trim it and use those leaves. But if you want a rich, strong plant that you'll have all summer, you really should be trimming this regularly. And it will, and if you don't, it's going to get tall and spiky. So that's a little helpful hint with basil. We're going to go next just quickly to lavender to wrap up. And what?
I know.
Oh, and
Unfortunately,
lavender.
we could talk for.
I will just say this, lavender, from everything that I've read and researched for this, lavender is not one you should start with seed. Even nursery people have a difficult time sometimes raising it. And in our area, it would, by the time that you could put your seeds out, your teeny plants, it has to be 70 degrees or hotter. So I highly recommend purchasing your lavender plants from a nursery. There are more and more lavenders being designed that go for the specific, are raised for specific zones. And there are so many different ways to use lavender. And this is one in particular that you don't have to cut the flowers. In fact, you want to keep those, and often for all kinds of different cooking and for other purposes, you use the flowers and the leaves. Lots and lots of history in Roman and ancient Egyptian times, and throughout the Bible, lavender is mentioned. So anyway, those are 5 herbs that we decided are easy to grow. And if you're going to start an herb garden, you may want to start with those.
And one last thing on lavender, if you use essential oils at all, lavender essential oil is probably the #1 that you would want to have in your first aid kit, because essential oil of lavender is good for headaches. It's good for burns. It's just kind of a stress reliever. It's something that you can use topically. Just kind of, if you've got a headache and it's originating in the back of your neck, you can just kind of couple drops of lavender in the back of your neck, and that may help relieve it. So good to have in the first aid kit.
And if you're looking for your lavender to start with, the English lavender is the one that's highly recommended. There are others, and you can see from these pictures, there's different flowers, different plants. But the first one to start with is an English lavender, and it's an easy lavender to grow.
Sally and Cynthia, this is fantastic. I could listen to you all afternoon, and you're sharing just wonderful information, pictures.
You.
Like I'm sure I'm speaking for all, but real quick before we get too far away from herbs and you go on to the next section, we do have a question in the chat about the prior slide. Maybe Katie can assist with this. If we go back one slide, is tall seed basil shown on this slide? Can you point that
Yes,
up?
Yeah.
Oh, which one is it? The top. Okay. Okay. Fantastic. I was curious too, Connie. So just before we got too far away from it, please continue on. Really enjoying all your sharing.
We're bringing it to a close.
Yeah.
So you will receive a resource list, and I've just got part of it pictured here. What I tried to do was put together a resource list of local nurseries and garden centers, kind of going all the way from the Dallas area out to the State College area. And also there's a couple of links on there for sites. One's from Penn State Extension, I think. The other one, I can't remember, but it's for native plant sources and information. The first one that you see here, Prairie Moon Nursery, is the only one on here that's online ordering, but I will say that I've had excellent results with their plants. Very healthy, they're native, and they sell seeds, plants, and bare root also. These are just pictures from my pollinator garden, and the one that I would point out is the one on the bottom right, which is a giant swallowtail. And I've only ever seen one, well, I've seen one the last 2 years, so it's really encouraging. But that butterfly can be like 4 to 5 inches tall. It's just absolutely, when you see it, I just about fell over, really, the one day I walked out and saw one. So yes, you will receive the resource list. And then I think that is, we have one more slide, and I think that's it. Oh, yes, as Sally said, go ahead. You want to talk and just say about the Herb Guild?
Oh, well, we'd love if you're interested. We have a great website with tons of information. If you want to go to the Creek Herb Guild website, Tony, who oversees that, just provides a wealth of information. And if you would like to attend a meeting, we meet usually the third Thursday of every month. But if you contact Cynthia or I, we could tell you if it's changed. Cynthia's our new president. Yay. So just ask her any questions you have.
Thanks, Sally. And as Sally said, chamomile is the herb of the year. That's nationwide. That's not just our herb guild. So it's fishingcreekherbguild.org. Yeah.
And just one quick thing, I'm going to make something with chamomile for May because that's our herb of the month as well as the year. There are places if you wanted to get essential oils or, you can look for organic sources.
Yeah.
So obviously I won't have chamomile in my garden, so I'm going to purchase some online and it will be from an organic source because I want to cook with it and make teas for the Herb Guild on that month.
Okay. We have one final slide and then we're some of you heard I had heard this quote earlier in the spring when I was just itching to get outside and dig in the garden. So I hope that you all have gotten a little bit of inspiration and you feel a bit more empowered, and maybe you'll connect up with some other gardeners in your neighborhood.
Sally and Cynthia, you guys are fabulous. Like seriously, I can't thank you enough for sharing your information and these slides. And just to echo it one more time, all of these resources will be shared out, as well as all the contact information. And certainly, I would encourage everybody that's on today in your networks. Continue to create the ripple effect. Share it as a way to connect with your friends, your neighbors, your community partners, because this is just a fabulous way to beautify our area, but also engage in those native plants, attract our pollinators. I'm inspired. I'm going to design a garden. So just anything to energize, the activity around this. Again, can't thank you enough, Sally and Cynthia. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say a super big thank you to Ellen and Katie and Danny behind the scenes for putting together this program and our presentation. I do want to give just a moment in case anybody has any last burning question or wants to throw an idea into the chat. We'll kind of monitor that. I'm just looking around the room here, and I think we've captured a few of those along the way. So I'm going to keep diving in, because what I also want to do is make sure that as we are wrapping up today's On the Bright Side, we spring out the door. We'll use all the puns or wording we can use today. With information about how you can be part of the Women's Giving Circle and join in on more of our events coming up. As you see on the screen, we do have a website dedicated to our events. You can reach that by QR code. To draw your attention to our annual meeting and our next On the Bright Side. So the annual meeting is just a fabulous way to come out, get to know some of the organizations that are fulfilling that mission to support women and really connect, empower, inspire others. Really great way to network. Highly encourage you to attend. The other one on the screen there again is the On the Bright Side in June. Coming attractions, we will share out our topic shortly, but make sure that you're on the lookout for that. And again, help us spread the word and awareness of both events. Go ahead, Ellen. Are you jumping in? Go for it.
I am going to promote it because I think it's also going to be a fascinating one. On June 18th, it's titled "Every Family Has a Story: How to Find Yours." So it's a little bit about looking about your family history and gathering stories and doing a bit of genealogy. So we hope everybody will come on back for that as well on June 18th.
Thank you so much, Ellen. And it'll be another great presentation like today. We've learned so much. We're having a lot of fun with the On the Bright Sides this year. And again, I can't thank Ellen enough for spearheading it all. And you know what? You have the perfect background for today's topic. I've always loved the painting behind you. So anyway, yes, please come out and join us. The On the Bright Sides are always by Zoom. The annual meeting and grant presentation will be at the Pine Barn Inn in Danville. And again, if you go to that QR code or the link, you'll find a way to register so that you can participate. Katie, if you want, yes, thank you very much. I really want to make sure that we do have a moment to talk about what it means to be part of Women's Giving Circle from a membership standpoint. The way we do it, our membership currently is on an annual basis. So any donation that is received through the end of 2025 will make you eligible to be a member in 2026. And the really neat thing about being a member is that you have a direct access to all of our events, our contacts, but even more importantly and more direct is that you get to help connect us to nonprofits that are fulfilling our mission, again, to empower, connect, inspire women and girls by supporting initiatives and resources that better their lives. And so what that means is that you have the ability as a member to nominate groups out there that you are aware of, projects, programs that you can bring attention and awareness to. And then you get to participate in the decision-making process of who receives grants from the Women Giving Circle. And it's a really neat way to connect and be part of the bigger picture for our Valley, and again, supporting each other along the way. So highly recommend, if you're not already a member, please join. If you are, thank you for being part of our network, and anything you can do to help us build awareness, spread the sunshine, and really encourage each other to uplift and take care of one another as we are springing into the next season. I think we can leave the room on an upbeat note here of it really feels great to have the connection, and it's so wonderful to see so many of you having come out today. Any final thoughts from the audience today? Any of our members want to speak up? Or this has been a very lovely hour. And again, thank you so much to our speakers, Sally and Cynthia. I'm truly inspired. Big thank you and kudos.
Thank you very, very, very much. Really appreciate it.
Wonderful to have you. Well, looking around the room, I guess let's go forth, enjoy the sunshine, enjoy the warm weekend weather ahead, and go plant your garden. Share out pictures along the way too. We'd love to see them.